Gammo video went over so well, I figured I would bring you air guns from my youth. This is the model 1377 American Classic, purchased for me by my dad in 1982. Here it is in all its glory. Look, I even got the instruction book. Let's check it out. Milsurp Garage, Crosman Model 1377 American Classic. Boy, when I was a kid, all you needed was this and this. That's it. That's all you needed. These cheap, flat-pointed pellets. But man, a box of these seemed to just last forever. Then if you had two boxes and one of these, you were definitely set. This was the coolest thing about these pump guns. These guns that were pneumatic, was that you didn't have to worry about the CO2 cartridges. I don't know, back in the day for me, I don't know about anybody else, but CO2 cartridges for a kid were a bummer, because you had to keep like, oh, your dad, I'm out of CO2 cartridges again. You know, it's like, forget about it. These days, I got these premier hollow point and pointed pellets and all this stuff, whatever. Like, sure, you go out and get whatever you want, go shopping at the sporting goods store and go crazy. But as a kid, you just were kind of like roughing it. And if I could just, stick a box of these in my pocket and just, it was almost like free. You thought about like shooting was like free when you had a pneumatic gun. And there's an interesting reason why Crosman even went with the pneumatic. We'll cover that. But let's just talk about what this thing actually is. It's a single-shot pneumatic 177 caliber pellet gun featuring a rifled steel barrel, that was the cool thing about these. Like originally, they would take pellets and BBs. I had fired 1 million BBs through this thing. Actually, in here, when you opened it up, that is a magnet, the tip of that right there, so that the BB would just stick right there. But eventually, they went through different, what they called phases of these things. We'll cover that. But they eventually went to just pellets. They even said, don't use BBs. As a kid, you kind of liked the BBs because they went faster and seemed like they just did a little bit more damage. But as I even got a little bit older as a kid, I liked the pellets better. I kind of liked it. You know what was cool about the pellets? Was that if it hit off of something just right, you would actually hear that whistle. That whistle like you would hear in like the Westerns when a bullet ricocheted off or something. You would actually hear that because the lead would get deformed as it cut through the air, but the BB would never get deformed, you know what I mean? So it would never make that noise. But as a kid, you kind of like, you kind of miss the bottle and it hits the dirt right next to it. It would make that little choo noise. That was awesome. So that's kind of like why I always wanted to stick with the pellets. This thing... 10 pumps, 600 feet per second, basically. That's where it was at. And for a pistol, that was pretty awesome back in these days. So yeah, let's get into these versions that they had here, and then there were variants. Okay, so let's just be clear. The two versions were, there was a regular one, let's say, and there was a 1377 made specifically for export to Canada. So you want to be careful if you're kind of like eBaying it to buy one of these or whatever, unless you're in Canada, of course. But exported to Canada, they had a special valve relief that would keep the power output under the legal limit. So apparently Canada had some kind of like limit for, maybe it was feet per second, or probably would be like meters per second, right? And so you had to conform to some weird Canadian rules. So that's why there's two versions of this. So now there were also different iterations, let's say, or variants. So the first variant, it was a steel breech, sliding breech cover, and it had this cocking knob. So the only real difference between, this is the second phase, I'll tell you right off the bat. So The first phase, the real only difference is that this breech part, so not this cover right here, but yeah, I get my magnet, like this part, it's sticking a little here because the barrel extends into here, but see back here that this is all here, this is all plastic. Whereas the first iteration, this breech right here was steel. Now, even like aftermarket, you could buy this as steel as like an upgrade. But there's a lot of people that are like, there's really no need for that to be steel. It's not like it's not like there's an explosion going off in here like a bullet, would go off. And that's why this plastic was fine for that, because it wasn't a part that really was taking a lot of abuse, and there's no known failures for anything going on there. So the phase 2, the second variant with this plastic breech, didn't really matter. And again, you could do BBs and pellets still through these. But that was like the phase 2 was just that this was plastic. The phase 3 was a pretty major change. The phase 3 is when it looked like this. It kind of, the pump looked a little different. This is the more modern one. So this had a plastic breech, pellet only, but it had a cocking handle, like right here. You see it here in this picture. So this that kind of changed the way the gun worked also. So you got to remember that. So like, let me put it to you like this. Like, so see, as a kid, safety is really important. Even with a BB gun, just safety is always paramount when you're dealing with anything that's firing. I mean, this thing shot a BB fast enough where it could go into your skin. If you got hit in the eye, forget about it. It could do damage. You know what I mean? Especially in close range, like if you're pumping it and you shoot it into your own leg or something, you're lucky it would be your leg. But the reason why this was safer, I would say, is because it didn't matter if you loaded it. It didn't matter when you were pumping it, what it was pointed at. You had to pump this thing 10 times. God knows whether it was pointed at your friend or at you or whatever when you're pumping it. As long as you find a comfortable position to crank 10 pumps into this thing was all that was important. As long as you didn't cock. See, right now, trigger's just dead. There is a cross bolt safety here that barely matters, because as long as you don't cock it like that, that's what engaged the sear, the trigger, So that's what was cool about this thing, is that you could load it, you could pump it 10 times and just stick it in your belt and just carry it in your pants. And you didn't have to worry about the trigger getting hit or anything like that, because it wasn't even cocked. The trigger was dead. And then when you wanted to shoot, all you had to do is just a quick pull on that thing. And it was kind of cool even as a kid. It was kind of like you're cycling the slide on a semi-auto, you know what I mean? Even it just making that noise. But how they changed it was that they made it that when you opened this part to load it, it automatically cocked it. So if you opened this to load it and then closed it, it was cocked right now at this point. So even now when you're pumping it, you'd have to be careful to hit the trigger when you're pumping and it could fire. Or once you pump it 10 times, it's hot. So in order for you to load it, you were cocking it. And that changed it a little bit. I think in general, just makes it a little bit less safe for a kid, is all I'm saying. Because, as a kid, you would want to pump it, have it charged, have it loaded, and be ready to rock, when you came upon whatever you wanted to put a BB in. And like I said, with this one, just being able to cock it, that wasn't even the sound. The sound would be more like, you got to admit, that's a pretty cool sound for a kid's BB gun. So yeah, that's why I think the first or second variant, is probably just a little bit cooler in that respect. Let's talk about how I date this thing to 1982, because I know I'm going to forget. Here's the Crosman dating system for after 1975. So it's they didn't start putting the date of manufacture in the serial number until July 1975. So if your serial number follows this configuration, you'll be able to date it. Now, how do we do this? It's the first number in the serial number is going to be the month. And then the second two numbers are going to be the year. So 17600, like the saying here, would be like 1 is January 76, January of 76. 19587, January 1985. 38136, March 1981. Got it? I give a few examples like that. And mine starts 182, so I know it's January of 82. Or is it February? I don't remember. What did I say? I wrote it down over here. This one is February of 81. Sorry, February of 81. So it was 281 started the serial number. Very, very beginning of phase 2, which, by the way, because it's the beginning of phase 2, my rear sight does not have the peep. That they kicked in for phase 2, but they didn't maybe they didn't have the part ready yet that early, and they did not furnish me with the reversible peep. So you see the way it works. You could put the notch there, or you could just take that. It's adjustable, or you could just take it out completely, swap it or upside down, and put the peep. Use the peep part. I didn't have that. Now there was just one anomaly. If you got to October, November, December, was 10, 11, 12, or sometimes they would use a letter like S for September, O for October, which gets confusing with the O and the 0, but as long as you know what to look for, you'd be able to figure it out. And in DC, my 38T, I've done a video on my Crosman 38C and 38T revolvers. There's a video up there already. Check it out. I'll link it in the description. I never could date that thing because I couldn't read it. I looked at it with a magnifying glass, and it says D80, so that would be December of 80. Right, so for some of them, there would be an SON or D, or it would just be like 10, like October would be 10. So if it's 1001, then it's October 2001. You're getting it, right? I know you get it. You're following it. There you go. That's how you do the dating for 1975 and later. Let's check out the history. Oh, here, by the way, here's a web archive. I could post this up there. I think I have a screenshot of it. If you look, there's so much stuff online. This is a web archive from 2008 of the actual page of them selling it. So this shows the length at 13.63 inches, 2 pounds, and that the barrel is rifled steel barrel. Single action bolt design. See, this is the bolt. See, this in 2008, you could see the bolt on there. I like the cocking piece on the back, but it is what it is. So this one also, by the way, this one is dead. So it's just a wall hanger. This thing, it's long since lost its ability to compress air. But the thing is that it would make more sense at this point just to buy a new one. It really would. I saw this posted up on Amazon. This is a like a bargain version of it with just all black. It's for $50. And with Amazon, you got Prime. You're not paying for shipping. You're getting 5% back. And any issues with it, it's just an immediate return. Like there's no nonsense involved with dealing with Amazon. And you're getting it quick. And it's $60 for the one with the wood colored plastic, but for $10 less, get it the black synthetic. You just have to deal with that bolt thing, like that. But now I think more as an adult, probably wouldn't matter as much. But if I really felt like I needed one of these, I wouldn't even rebuild this one, even though they have these. There's so many rebuild kits. There's rebuild kits with chambers. There's ones with just O-rings. There's ones with all kinds of seals. I'm sure I would be able to find whatever I needed to do to rebuild it to hold air. But here's the problem. The problem is that it's just so many years and years of pumping. Look at all the play and the mechanism. These rivets that are in here, like how beat up are those? Even the like the sideways twist to it, look. It's incredibly beat up. It needs to rest. if I really needed one of these things, I'd go with a new one, a modern one. Everything is modern. The trigger's modern. Everything's that's well. I know that nothing's gonna break. Imagine I rebuild this whole thing, all the air and everything, and then something part of the trigger mechanism was worn out or breaks or whatever. But I'm telling you that I dogged this thing. I mean, I put so many years of it shooting. It just needs to be retired. And the fact that they still make them, that's what you would take advantage of and just get one that's brand new. Go another 50 years, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Um, there were 22 versions of these also. If I didn't mention these already, didn't mention that already. You saw I had the original box. This is what it really looked like when you bought it. I found some guy online that was selling one that was just like untouched. So this is what you got. This is what it looked like. Um, and here's some really cool cutaway photos that show you the insides. Very complicated, right? Not easy to construct these things, or to it's if you think about it, just a regular firearm is so much easier. You just have to like build a way to get the bullet fed in and the brass ejected. But the actual operation is as simple as just hitting the back of the bullet with a pin. You don't have to worry about where's the pressure coming from and how's it getting released, how's it getting. It's pretty. Every gun is pretty much the same. You hit the back of the bullet and there's an explosion that pushes the bullet out the barrel. It's like you have to do a lot of work with getting that bullet into the chamber, getting the empty brass out, and the next round in. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about. With air guns, when you fire, there's nothing. There's nothing there. But it's like there's a lot of managing that air going on, and it's interesting designs to look at. Well, the before I get to the actual patent for this thing, I just want to cover a little of that history because the guy that's in the patent is in the history. So dig this. With my 38T and 38C video, we didn't really talk much about Crosman's history. Very interesting history here. So this company was founded in the mid-20s by a family that was basically they owned a seed company in Rochester, New York. So it was the family chauffeur, William McLean was his name. So this was a company. This was the family, the Crosman family, owned a seed company. This was back when you could actually own a seed company in this country that didn't start with the letter M. So William McLean was the family chauffeur, and I guess it was, I don't know if it was hobby or a past career or something. If this guy is designing a pump compressed air gun, he's got to have some kind of background with the stuff. You know what I mean? And the family they backed him and started actually producing this thing. And there was a guy, Philip Y. Hahn. He was related to the Crossmans by family. I guess he married some Crossman daughter. And he was integral in putting this company together and incorporating it. And but he didn't like the way things were going. And he bailed out in 1930s. It was only after like 5 years he was out. He threw in the towel, this guy. And the company, I guess they weren't managing it right, and whatever was going on. You got to imagine it's the Depression, you know what I mean, and things weren't going good during the, production of air guns during the Great Depression is not going to be going so great. So this guy Hahn actually purchased the company in 1940 for $5,000. And then, so not a timely purchase either, because then bang, World War II hits now. So the wartime economy, I mean, manufacture of air guns was just not happening. But check this out, the government, right? OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, looks this guy up, looks up this company and says, hey, listen, we want you to make 2,000 compressed air guns for unspecified covert use by OSS agents. I mean, you can only imagine what compressed air guns would be used for by OSS agents. Sounds like there's like, some assassinating going on. I think they were in touch with High Standard for some 22s with silencers on them for the same reason. So now Han, all of a sudden, he's faced with having this military contract, right? I mean, this could get the company going again, and sure enough, it does. And he finds this guy. And I would love to know how he gets, if he already knew this guy or whatever, but his name is Rudolf Merz, M-E-R-Z. He's a Swiss engineer. They worked together with whatever they had to fill this order, and that is what helped them grow to become dominant, the number one dominant company in the airgun industry. Post-war years, there was this huge growth of like target shooting, recreational shooting, and training shooting. All of a sudden, after World War II, kind of like knowing how to, having like even youth that knows how to shoot. These were important things. And like, so Crosman, they got involved with this market. And Han, think about Han. He was an incredible marketing genius. This guy, they were producing inexpensive guns. Merz was a designing genius for these things. And Han's sales knowledge was he had a very aggressive, he had very aggressive marketing programs where they got in touch with they got in touch with like American Legions. The NRA was involved with them, Civic, and these civic and recreational organizations all over the place, where they were promoting things and having contests and having shooting competitions and all kind of stuff. And this grew the market like crazy for them. The thing about Crosman is they developed like repair stations across the country that were staffed by these technicians to fix the guns and things like that. And like, consumers, they like things like that. So post-war, this is what helped them to really take off. And you see, there was this model called the 105, that this is like what the Crosman 1377 came from. This was like its great grandfather was the 105. This gun, it was 105 was in 177 caliber. The 106 was more popular in 22 caliber. 22 caliber air guns were more popular back then in the like in the 40s. So 1947 to 1953 is when they made this 105 hugely popular. And like I said, it was this gun's grandfather. And they see, the thing about Crosman around this time, they were pushing this pneumatic pistol thing, because like the compressed air guns, they had been around for a while already, and Crosman was there from the inception. They were there from the very beginning. I got patents to prove it. I'll show you in a little bit. But the CO2s, they weren't necessarily the CO2 cartridges of today either. They were these like military surplus, like little canisters that you could get them like recharged at gas stations. And those were used for these compressed air. And the compressed air guns were used for a lot of different things too, like spear guns and line throwing guns. And Crosman had all these patents, and they made these guns too. Like literally spear guns, and like guns that would shoot grappling hooks and shoot like safety lines, or like, from ships. They would be like these things on the ships where you would be able to shoot the safety line out to people or something like that. And these were all the compressed air guns, but it was the pneumatic guns. The difference between the pneumatic and the ones like the Gammo, like I just showed you, is a spring gun. The pneumatic guns, the spring guns were more of like the European design. And the Gammo is a little bit of an anomaly, that it is a very powerful one. Usually the spring guns were less powerful. It was the pneumatic ones like this, like the 1377, that had a leg up on the power. And with these air guns, I mean, like, power was everything, you know what I mean? how fast you could chuck that BB. They were always competing with like 22 caliber. How fast is it compared to a 22? You know, you always wanted to get as close as possible to that kind of power was the goal. And the pneumatic designs, what they did was you would you would make use of air that's there already. It's compressed. It's like you're compressing it and storing it in a reservoir somehow. That's what all the pumping is doing, you know. So you could pump it 5 times if you want, 8 times, 10 times. The more you pump it, the more pressure you're putting in this reservoir, the faster the pellet's going to go. Whereas the spring guns, it just you wound up a spring, you tensioned the spring, and when you pulled the trigger, you're just releasing the spring. It's just the movement of the spring drives a piston. And that obviously it's released by the trigger, and the spring drives the piston, compresses the air like immediately as you pull the trigger, and bang, releases it. You know, so you just get that one spring-driven piston push, and that was it. Whereas the pneumatic guns, you could build pressure. That was the difference. And that was the thing about Crosman, was they moved heavily into this pneumatic gun thing. And it's not, I think they might have actually borrowed this idea from one of their competitors, which was Benjamin. They actually wound up buying Benjamin air pistols. Benjamin had been around for a long time, from before, even the 1800s, like before the late 1800s, Benjamin was put together. Benjamin air pistols. The HB-17 was the 177 caliber, and the HB-22 was the 22 caliber. These were the guns that if Mers borrowed a paid tribute, this is what he borrowed a paid tribute from. They were more expensive than the 1377 and harder to pump. And Crosman definitely put that in their ads, like cutting them, trying to cut them down. But the bottom line was these things were powerful, and they were a very, very worthy competitor of them until they wound up acquiring the company, and all the product lines merged. But it was the 105, 106 in 1947 and 1953 that started this design for the 1377. That was its grandfather, and it definitely borrowed from the Benjamin air pistol. They were really good about acquiring stuff, Crosman, you know, acquiring competitors. So this, just to cover this, I don't want to forget, the 105, 106 was only from 47 to 53. And then the successor to that was the model 1300. All right. And that didn't kick in until 1970. So there was this period of almost 2 decades where the design, this type of design, just fell off the ground. 1953, they stopped producing this 105, 106 and kicked back in again in 1970 with the 1300. That was a 22 caliber that they called the Medalist. This is a pretty cool gun if you could get your hands on one too, but just didn't quite have the power. The power just wasn't quite there like this 1377 was. There wasn't anything special, let's say, as far as power goes. It was later on, like in 76, they discontinued that. And then in 77 is when they introduced this 1377. And this is the history that built to it, that led to what made this one special, was all of that history and all of those different designs to lead up to them putting together the winner, you know. And this was it. This was very, very powerful. Here's a ballistic trajectory table for it, and this is like a ballistic trajectory table for some 22 guns. I mean, literally, this is like this is serious power for air gun pistol, you know. Yeah, so like as far as acquisitions, you remember Kessler? We were talking about Kessler. We did a shotgun where it was like a clone of a Kessler. I'm darned if I can remember. Man, it's all just starting to smear together at this point, like all these different models and designs. It's like I could have looked it up before I did the video, but I forgot. But it's back there. It's a design. It's in the title. It doesn't say it's a Kessler shotgun. It's kind of like a copy. It's one of these like store brands, but it's a store brand that was Kessler. It's like a Sears brand. You know what I mean? But Kessler was the original manufacturer. Kessler was originally an air gun company, and they tried to compete with Crosman. They even kind of, I think they might have copied this 105, 106 gun and come out with their own gun that was like very close to it. And they tried to copy. There's a lot of borrowing going on in there. There's this whole air gun thing, you know, and and they even might have stolen away a couple of Crosman worker like designers or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I think they even made a play for some of their workers, and Crosman had none of that, and they somehow, like, eventually Kessler went bankrupt and was purchased by Crosman, and that was one of Crosman's greatest purchases because Kessler had invested so much money into their equipment. They had this like top of the line, the most sophisticated stock making machines. If you've ever seen how they take like a wood blank and they put it in a machine that kind of rotates like a lathe kind of, and it has like these cutting, like it just goes along and cuts a stock out of it like as it's spinning. It's pretty wild, and I've seen that in action. And they got like those machines and other stuff. So stuff that they would increase the efficiency and reduce costs, which Crosman was real big about reducing cost as well, you know. And they acquired so many. They had all these cooperative ventures and buying out of different, like the European firm Anschutz and Dynawerk they worked with, and I don't know if they're working with or just the companies were about to fail and they kept them alive, you know, for working out deals and stuff like that, you know. And hugely popular Crosman right now, hugely popular. I mean, look at how they've look at how successful they've been, and let's check out some of these patents. All right, so here's Mers patent. There's a few of them. This is one that I'm coming up with for pump air gun, pneumatic air gun, but it's so old. It's 65. I mean, you would think it would either be older, where it would be like for the 106, 105, 106. There were so many patents up there. To tell you the truth, my head started spinning. So I just found one for a pump gun, and I was like, here you go. This could be kind of interesting to check out. Here's the number if you want to look at it. And the ordinary air gun is of the lever action type. An elongate arm, which is pivoted to the barrel or stock of the gun, is connected by linkage to a piston. The arm is either vigorously pumped about or see the thing is, I think these patents were very specific where they talk about the pumping action for this reason. Where's my paperwork? I gotta pull this up. So it was the Benjamin air pistol, the HB-17, right? This was their competitor. Remember, they bought up the company, but before that, they were a competitor for a long time. The thing about this HB-17 was it was more expensive and harder to pump. And like I said, it was in all the Crosman ads and everything like that. Crosman prided themselves on the fact that it was so easy to pump. And I do remember that this thing, you had to pump it 10 times. It was this long arm. Look at all the leverage you had with this long arm, you know. And it's true. And I think that's where these patents kicked in, merged patents. So there's other ones. Listen, I got a Crosman shotgun patent right here. Okay, this one's from 67 that was filed. You got to check these out. You got to look this up. This is so awesome. I think I've seen this before online, that these actually, you know, exist. But yeah, gas-powered shotgun. That is the number for that one. There's the here's the CO2. You know, I told you that they were like cutting edge with CO2. They were making it happen back then. And this is a pistol design here. Their designs were second to none for the CO2 cartridges and for the gas, the gas operation, the cartridge operation. And here's the patent for that one, patent number for that one. This one's interesting. See, this shows all the different things. This is the line throwing gun. There's the patent for this. A lot of this pneumatic stuff, the gas compressed stuff and the pneumatic stuff was used for like spear guns and stuff like that. Spear guns would work underwater. You wouldn't have to worry about, powder getting wet, or how are you going to make an explosion with like a primer or gunpowder underwater. But pneumatic, you're compressing air. It doesn't matter if it's underwater. It works all the time. You can see by the barrel, yeah, this is like some kind of line throwing gun. It's pretty awesome. Check this one out too. Just go in there. You could look under Crosman Corporate and you could see so many different patents in there. You go ahead and explore. And yeah, like I said, if I'm going to get one, I'm just going to go get a brand new one. Right now, to tell you the truth, I got a few of the rifles, the air rifles. I don't really see a reason for the pistol. But $50 is, well, it sure is attractive. I almost convinced myself just now. But yeah, I know a lot of people would be like, just rebuild it, just rebuild it. You don't even. It's just so. It really is just so beat up. Look at it. It's like it needs such a huge rebuild that I would just go with a brand new one. There's probably so many improvements with the new one anyway that it would only make sense. And when my dad bought this for me, he also got me this, the 1399 stock. Look at that. There are so many accessories for these things. There really are, especially, that's another reason why to get a new one. A lot of the accessories don't work necessarily on these older ones. A lot of the accessories that you'd find now, different sights, different wood grips, things like that on it, they're all for the newer one. So that's another reason why it would make a little bit more sense. But back in the day, to have any accessory for this thing was cool. This was cool. I didn't like the way it felt on there, and it didn't line up with my eye when I went to shoot and everything. But man, down at the sand pit as a kid, you had this on you. People were like, what is that? That is so cool. So you were cool, but I didn't really like it. But I held on to it all these years. Still have it. Amazing. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the American Classic. It's not even the American Classic. The first one you could call, right? The first one you could call the American Classic. But then after that, this one is really the Classic American Classic. And then the new one that they have out now would be the Classic American Classic Classic. If you start off with American Classic, where are you going from there? You know what I mean? But I guess it was called the American Classic because the 105 was the pneumatic pump 177 caliber air gun that they were talking about. That's where they came up with Classic from. And that's a cool thing about Crosman is that they built upon their products. You got to respect that. And go look at Mers and his patents. Woo! That is a prolific designer. And ladies and gentlemen, it's going back inside. Got the instruction book, the original box. Here it goes. Ready to go back in the closet and chill for another 40 years. All right, you all take care. I'm going to do a couple of air guns. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go through. I got a couple here, and you guys like to see. You like the Gammo video? I love that Gammo. That's an awesome gun. Saw a couple at a gun show this weekend, too. And I realized that I have a much newer one. That a lot of them, they're out there. They're all dogged and beat up. Kind of cool that I got like a newer version. Didn't even realize I had like one that was so modern compared to the others. But you guys seem to like this air gun stuff. Oh, there you go. Boom, boom. Yeah, I guess this broke. Does look like the same box. I guess this is just half the box. I think that's what happened. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with a couple of more air guns. So if you're into these air guns, you're going to want to hang around. And if you're not into these air guns, hang around anyway, because I promise I'll make it interesting. See y'all later. Take care. Be back soon.